Again, we are standing by to watch as the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft is unberthed from the International Space Station and backed away from the orbiting complex. All of the bolts have been removed, as was confirmed by the team here in Houston. We are just waiting for the first motion of the station's giant arm to back the spacecraft away from the orbiting complex, and that will signal the official time of unberthing. This will be a ground-commanded series of events. The crew is on board watching along as this takes place. Their next action will be when it's time to actually release Dragon from the arm. They will pull the trigger on a command station there, either the cupola or the Destiny laboratory. There's two different robotic workstations they can work at, and that will put Dragon on its way. The robotics officer here in Mission Control confirming to Flight Director Scott Stover that the backaway motion has begun to back Dragon away from the International Space Station. It takes about 6 minutes to do this. And Dragon being slowly removed from the International Space Station. Now official unberthing time is 3:10 a.m. Central Time, 4:10 a.m. Eastern Time. So Dragon is slowly backing away from the International Space Station, basically the reverse of what we saw back on 23 days ago whenever Dragon arrived up at the International Space Station. This vehicle launched back on March 1st and arrived at the orbiting complex on March 3rd.
Okay, go ahead. This information for myself. Yes.
And now it is being removed from its home for the last 3 weeks or so. Its job with the International Space Station now complete.
The software. Okay. I confirmed that we're switching to it, and you can start working with RS-2. Okay, copy. Talk to you later. Good luck.
So again, an official unberthing time of the SpaceX Dragon vehicle is 3:10 a.m. Central Time, 4:10 a.m. Eastern Time. This is a step-by-step maneuver to back the spacecraft away from the International Space Station. Again, this is being ground commanded by the robotics officers here inside Mission Control. The goal of this maneuver is to back Dragon away to about 15 meters or so away from the International Space Station. It'll still be attached to the end of the arm, and that is at the point which Tom Marshburn and Chris Hadfield on board the International Space Station will pull a trigger, and it will release Dragon, and Dragon will begin the process of conducting about 3 burns. The first one will occur at roughly 5:57 a.m. Central Time, the second one at 5:59, and the third one at 6:06. Here inside Mission Control, the robotics officer has confirmed to Flight Director Scott Stover that the maneuver is complete.
ISS and Space Run 1 for Roman. Go ahead.
They are going through the process now of re-enabling thrusters on the spacecraft, and also what they call feathering the solar arrays on the International Space Station. Basically, they turn them edge on toward the Dragon in case there's any sort of inadvertent thruster firing. It does not damage the space station's huge solar arrays.
I'm sending step 5 and nothing changes. Until we copy the information.
These two spacecraft
We're going to take a look.
We're currently about 250 miles above the Pacific Ocean, just crossing the western edge of California, right in between Los Angeles and San Diego. About to skirt the southern tip of the state of California, cross over parts of Las Vegas, go across the very northwestern edge of Arizona, parts of Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska, South Dakota, and Minnesota.
We're discussing. Okay.
As we mentioned, there's 3 different categories of science that were part of this mission. There's science that is being delivered and returned, all in the scope of this mission. There's the kind that came up on SpaceX but is going to stay on board the space station for quite some time. And there's the kind that has been on board the station and is coming home later on this morning. In terms of the science that went up and is coming down today, there's quite a bit of biological research and also some metal research that is taking place. There are two what are called brick experiments, or biological research in canisters. One of them is run by the University of Florida. They're in Gainesville. It takes a look at plant growth and the development of cell cultures in microgravity. Another one is from the University of Wisconsin. Also a plant experiment like you're seeing there on the screen. It takes a look at the plant Arabidopsis investigation, and it focuses on the growth and development of those seeds in microgravity to find out what happens whenever plants grow off the earth.
Oh, do you see the homepage, or did it disappear as well?
There's also a cell biotech demo, which takes a look at on-orbit validation of different cell culture experiments and biotechnology on board the space station. It really takes a look at how cell and molecular biology and different functions and response and how those things react to being in space. That actually comes out of the NASA Ames Research Center. And then there's the CSLM-3 experiment, which you've heard us talk about quite a bit here on NASA television throughout these weeks. It is the coarsening in solid liquid mixtures. It takes a look at dendritic structures, basically when metals are in their liquid form and they solidify. It forms almost like a little tree branches inside the metal itself, almost like if you can imagine water freezing into ice here on Earth, and the sort of a crystalline structure that forms inside that reacts quite a bit differently to being up in space. And if they study it up there and to find out how this experiment takes place, it can lead to better, stronger metals here on Earth, which obviously has quite a bit of applications in our daily lives. That comes out of the Northwestern University up in Illinois. In terms of the science that was delivered to the space station, as we take a look at SpaceX's solar arrays being rotated around there, this is all part of the preparation to move the vehicle even further away from the International Space Station and get it ready to be released. We're about 2.5 hours away from that release point. But the science that is being delivered to the space station and was moved over to the International Space Station complex at the beginning of the mission that will stay on board. There's a Microflow 1 technology demonstration. It comes from the Canadian Space Agency. It takes a look at a miniaturized flow cytometer and how that behaves up in space. Flow cytometry is a technique that focuses fluids into a controlled stream that enables researchers to quantify the components and monitor physiological and cellular activity. It has implications for medical care up in space and also monitoring, because it could lead to smaller devices and smaller instruments, which of course up in space, size and weight is everything. So things that could be a little bit lighter, a little bit smaller, will help us on future journeys. Also quite a bit of nanoracks experiments that were delivered. A lot of these are student experiments that were designed by high school and college students and will live on board the International Space Station for quite some time. There is one that came out of the Methodist Hospital Research Institute here in Houston. It is a protein crystal growth experiment that takes a look at how different crystals behave and form in space. There's also one out of the Riverside Christian School in Riverside, California, that looks at how bacteria grows up in space, specifically E. coli, which of course everyone here on Earth is familiar with. Riverside also had another experiment that takes a look at battery performance, which is interesting considering that the space station operates on huge batteries right now. But the students want to take a look at, does spaceflight and the zero-gravity environment have an effect on batteries, how they charge, how they discharge, and whether they last longer up in space than they do here on Earth.